until this slide, we have completed our topic. Like JSON is having the shortcoming of lacking the namespace, and it doesn't have any inherent validation, and it's not extensible like XML. Then JSON doesn't provide display capabilities like XML. So display capabilities are not at all there for the JSON because it is only meant for the data exchanges. Okay, so it's not the case like we have seen with the XML. And so XML is much capable when you compare with the JSON. XML usage is very different. Entirely, it depends on the technology how you are going to use XML as in the format of a database or in the format of an SVG converter, or whether to create dynamic templates by using the XSLT. So many capabilities are there when you talk about the XML. But whereas for the JSON, it is mainly intended for data exchanges. So it is mainly intended for easy data exchanges, easy write and read capabilities whenever you are doing the JavaScript programming. So, so JSON is less secure than XML. This is also we have discussed already. Whenever you are going to depend on lightweight applications, in which security is not that much important, you can freely depend on this JSON. But whereas whenever we are dealing with the financial related applications, suppose you want to send data to any banking application, in those conditions, JSON is not a preferable approach because some middlemen can hack the data and they can completely take advantage of that because it is not that much secure. JSON is not that much secure. Whenever performing asynchronous data calls without requiring page refresh, you can depend on the JSON. Working with data stores, compile and save form or user data for local storage. Local storage means if you are working in websites, some of the information you want to temporarily store it in a JavaScript object, and those objects generally are saved in web browser local storage itself. Okay, so web browsers are having local storages, so you can take advantage of the local storage by saving that information in the JSON format whenever you are implementing some web applications. Then web services and APIs use JSON format to provide public data. If you see the current trends, this point is heavily used actually. When you compare with all others, actually, yes, the transferring data is there anyway. It's not. When you compare with the Ajax features, this is the highly used feature with the JSON formats. Okay, so web services and APIs use JSON format nowadays heavily. It has some disadvantages as well as advantages also, but you want to create an application very rapidly, so simply you don't want to bother about many other things, then JSON format is the best thing. So in that way you can understand. Okay, so JSON format, now we will slowly understand what is the format of a JSON. Even though we have seen with a slide example some data types and other examples, we are going to see exclusively in this section. So structure of JSON format. JSON contains object, array, and name value pair elements. These can all be contained within one another. Okay, so with the outermost element always being either an object or an array. Let us see with a sample example, because simply reading out the statements may not give you enough idea. So that's why I'm going to the second screen, in which you can see the complete example of entire JSON object. So this is a full example of JSON object, how you are going to write, and from which you can also read also. So both things are possible. And whenever the starting brace is coming across, you can see that as a JSON object is getting started. Okay, so this part is actually getting started with the JSON object. Now the browser parser will see inner elements, like this is the name value page. So there is a title, and this title is a name, and it is having some value attached to that. Similarly, author, some value, genre, some value, Detail is inner object. Actually, this is a property when we can call them also properties. So for this property, one inside object is also getting started. Okay, so this is a nested array actually. So if you see this as an array, and the detail is having nested array. So again, innermost object is getting started here. Again, it may have some different properties in that, and you can see there are some numbers also. Numbers are not quoted like with the case of the strings. There is no double quotes here. This is also a number, ISBN. Language is string, so that's why it is having double quotes. Again, pages is a number. So slowly you are going to identify how to give the formatting whenever you are creating the JSON data. Okay, so the innermost object is getting closed here. So this much of information is for the detail. So the detail property is given with innermost array. Then comes with the price. Price is actually started with an array. Okay, the array is actually started with a square brackets. So array means combination of some objects. So thereby you can see this is one object, comma, second object, comma, third object. In that way you can take plenty of objects. So you can take plenty of objects for this price element, because price is an array, but detail is an object. Okay, and everything is an object, but we can have we can see this JSON as nested elements. Okay, nested objects actually, nested objects or nested arrays. So in that way we can align the information so that you can take down to any level according to your requirements. And finally, the starting brace is getting closed here, and this is an array. Whenever we are starting with that array, correspondingly after some object declarations uh, of having some data, we have to end that after the last object. Okay, so this is an example. Now we will see, as you have understood, now we will discuss on the theoretical aspect. So this contains object, array, and name value pair elements. These can all be combined with one another. Okay, so one inside another. Okay, with outermost element always being either an object or an array. So the outermost object anytime is an object. This object again can contain arrays, or similarly the outermost element can be array, and this array may be containing inner objects. So both vice versa is possible. Okay, so with the outermost element always being either an object or an array, both are valid. Okay, so highlighting some of the important ones. So the outermost element may be containing sometimes objects or many times arrays, and it can be a combination of both the things. And an object element is defined using the enclosing braces of these um, special characters. Then array element is used with these special characters, and a name value pair is defined using the pattern name colon value, where name is a string and includes the enclosing quotes. Okay, it should be every time, be it you can see, be it a number. Okay, the number is the number without quotes is applicable on the value, not on the name. Okay, so names are always given in double quotes. You can see here whether we are taking the string format or the number format, but these name values, uh, the name portion will be having the double quotes mandatorily, but in the value portion, so this is the name and this is the value. Okay, so on the value side you are going to miss out the double quotes whenever you are talking the data type of number. So as it is a number, we do not have any double quotes. As it is a double means it's again a number, you do not have a double quotes like in this case. But except those boolean and numbers, every time you have to keep these double quotes for all the strings and other kind of implementations. So name is a string includes the including quotes, colon separates the name value. Value can be a string, number, boolean, null, or it can be an object. All these are possibilities for the JSON object. So this structure provides a lot of flexibility as objects, arrays, name value pairs can be defined in many ways. The use of the name value pairs also allows for sparse definitions. That means no positional constraints for placeholders and variance in content from object to object. So what does that mean is actually you can have a very loosely defined definition. Suppose you don't have to bother about how it is going to affect my overall data object. So you don't have to bother much about that. You can freely define in your own way. You can nest inside this element. And again, if you want to have further elaboration on these languages, okay, you can take one more inner element or inner object or inner array. So in that way, you can freely enhance your data format as per your requirements. Getting? So this is all how we can create with the data in JSON formats. So any doubts in this? We have a single practical on this JSON because we are having so many practicals on different languages. So that's why in the practical is only a single practical is given, and that is parsing the JSON object as well as writing into the JSON object. So that is the only motive we are going to see from the practical perspective. And whenever we are going to conduct the lab sessions in which you are going to see the practical implementation, and it's very easier one. Okay, so there is nothing fancy in this practical of this JSON. Then elaborating much on this, an object is an unordered set of name value pairs. There is no ordering actually given in this. An object begins with the left brace and ends with right brace, and each name is followed by a colon, like in this case, and they are separated by a comma. So this is how you can symbolically represent any JSON object. So here we are going to start with the brace, and it is going to end up like this. Then there is a string format for the name. This is the name section. Okay, and this is the value section. This can be in the double quotes or without quotes. And after every property, there should be a separator in this comma format. You can see all the commas here. This is a comma, this is a comma, this is a comma. So all these commas are actually separating the data from the previous one. So the JSON parser, whenever is coming across either colon, it comes to know, okay, this is the name value pair. Whenever it is coming to know like the comma, then it wants to separate, then it wants to store the data in a separate variable with whatever the name that you want to give it. So the parser dependencies are different. Parser implementations are very different. This is how we can symbolically represent the JSON object. So how the single object is going to be shown? You can see this is the starting one. The braces is getting started, and this is the ending of that particular JSON object. And the name value is having some value with the name server 14, and address is again a string, but you can see the port is having a number, so that's why we did not put a double quotes. And admin is given with some array of numbers 1080, 1081. So all these are numbers, so that's why you do not have any double quotes. Okay, so double quotes are not required because this is a number. But if you are saying that admin with some admin names, in that way you have to take double quotes like Rajesh. Okay, so the Rajesh has to be given with double quotes because that's a string. But as it is not a string, the double quotes is not required. So in that way, different data types you have to keep with the name value pairs, and accordingly you are going to prepare a complete JSON object in this way. The same is explained here. No quotation marks are required for the value 80 here. A boolean true, false without quotation marks because this is an integer. This is a boolean actually. There is no example here. Suppose I will take active. Okay, whether this machine is active or not. I'm not able to write on this. Okay, so if you are putting this as a boolean, then you have to write the true without quotes. So the boolean true or false without the quotation marks you have to provide. The value null, again, it do not have any meaning actually. So it's not having any double quotations. But if you are putting null inside the double quotes, then it becomes a string, and string is containing the data of null actually, because the parser is not able to understand what does this null actually signifies. Okay, so null is a null if you are putting without quotes, but if you are putting inside the quotes, then it do not have any meaning. An object, the value starts and ends with enclosing braces like this. An array like this. So this is how we can make a single JSON object. Text to object conversions in JavaScript code. So many a times, whenever you are doing the data conversions, or if you want to parse the data from the website and you want to save temporarily at a local storage, or otherwise you want to check out the information which you have saved earlier, then you are going to search it out from the local storage, and again you are going to create a JSON object or JavaScript object. So all these possibilities can happen, and for that some supporting methods have been given. What are they? Using eval function, this is not suggested due to security reasons. This is a JavaScript implementation actually. Okay, so eval is already there in the JavaScript before the existence of the JSON. So eval is already there. It's not any newer one that is specifically targeted towards this JSON. No, not like that. Eval is already there in the JS. So this is not suggested due to security reasons. Malicious data can be sent from the server to the client, and then eval in the client script can harm the web implementations, whatever you have provided the logic. So eval invokes the JavaScript compiler. Okay, so there is a var is a actually data type in the JavaScript. So when we have declared an object with var, and you are suppose reading some information from whatever the variable that you want to parse, and for that you are actually using the eval. This is a plain old JavaScript kind of implementation, but it is generally not recommended. That means it can also work for reading out the data, but it is not recommended for the security reasons. Okay, then what? There is an exclusively JSON object that is given with this parse method. See here. So nowadays almost every browser supports this JSON object, because JSON and these XML are already, the parsers are integrated with the browsers nowadays. In earlier days, actually, the compilers were somewhat different, and they were not at all standardized. But every website, every web browser actually nowadays is supporting JSON as well as the XML parsers inbuilt in the browser engine. Okay, so that's why we are taking that advantage. And now we are falling back on that particular option, where my JS object is equal to, now there is a clear cut object that is given for the JSON, and you have to simply call this parse and provide the whatever the object that you are having the JSON data. That's all. So now this my JS object is given with this kind of information. Now JS object is having this kind of information, which is after getting parsed. Okay, So पूरा का पूरा जो डेटा पार्स करने के बाद in a string format, this is nothing but a string. Even though this is a JSON object before, object is getting converted. That means it is getting deserialized. And what is the method for deserialization? You have to simply call JSON dot parse. So this method you have to remember. Okay, so JSON dot parse. And if you are using this method, no security issues, plus it is faster than the eval method, because eval is coming from the JavaScript family, but JSON is directly coming from the browser. So JavaScript के आपके ब्राउजर को पहले जावास्क्रिप्ट के कंपाइलर से बात करना पड़ेगा. कंपाइलर नहीं तो पार्सर रहता है. So the JavaScript parser first of all need to be talked by the browser, then it will invoke this eval method, then you are going to pass this my JSON text. So it takes some time, but directly in this method it is directly starting from the second step. Okay, so there is no separate parser that it wants to talk, and browser is directly able to parse the data, because the JSON object is pretty much embedded in the browser implementation. So now one step is removed, so that's why it is slightly faster than the eval method for parsing the JSON object. Okay, got it? Next, now the reverse one. Earlier with this approach, what we have done is there is an object. Okay, so this is an object. This is an object, and this object we are going to be supplied to this method parse. And okay, so this is the object. The parse method is going to be supplied with this object. Then what we are getting? We are getting a JSON in a deserialized manner. Here we are going to create the text actually, and this is the object that we are going to, no, that's what I have told. Okay, right, yes, I forgot. This is the object that we are going to have, and out of which no, suppose, yes, this is the text actually. So see this example, suppose this entire text we are going to supply to this method, then it is able to parse and accordingly create an object. Okay, so this is the conversion into the object, but this is the reverse one. It is actually stringifying the data. That means it is actually converting into the text format. So to convert into an object, we have the parse, and to convert into the string, we have this stringify method. So these two methods are interchangeable, and you can sometimes parse the data from any given text like this and create your own JSON object, and accordingly you can read and write operations. And then if you want to deserialize that, no, if you want to serialize that, then in those conditions you have to call this stringify method. So stringify is for the serialization, and deserialization is for the parse. So in that way you can remember. Okay, so this is a very simple method, and how it can be invoked? It can be invoked with the inbuilt method that is called as with this object JSON. So this JSON method is supporting multiple methods, not only stringify, parse, some other couple of methods are also there, but these two are heavily used either to convert into object or into the string format. So only those conversions we are required to do whenever we are dealing with the data interchanges. Then JSON comments. JSON doesn't support the comments. It is not a standard. But you can do some tricks such as adding an extra attribute comment in JSON object like this. See the example here. Okay. Otherwise, it do not support the JavaScript comment also like this. Okay, so it's not at all supporting that. And if you want to keep some information, you can write in like in the descriptive way, comments, remarks, notes, whatever you want to put that element for your own convenience. Whether to parse it or not, that depends on your requirements. But mainly, they do not support the comments. The JSON do not support the JSON do not support the comments. Then coming about the topic of the schemas. Like with the case of the XML DTDs, what is the purpose of the DTD? DTD is there to provide some constraints. It is nothing but the rules that we want to attach to our particular data format, and it is having some advantages because whatever the data that you are going to write is complying with those rules. That is what the ultimate aim of providing the schemas. Even in the databases also you do the same thing. Okay. So JSON schema is a specification for JSON based format for defining the structure of JSON data. It was written under the IETF draft, which was expired in 2011 itself. Okay, so it was there and it was expired, but still the JSON schema supports. That means no more additions were there for this JSON schemas. It describes your own existing data format. So what the DTD does, DTD also does the same thing for XML. Similarly, JSON schema is doing the description of the data formats. Okay. And again, it's a clear human and machine readable documentation. The example we will see in the next slide. The complete structural validation useful for automated testing. It supports the automated testing also because you just put your schema ready for the JSON object and simply serve that to a computer. It can validate the data of the JSON which is coming from a network machine. So in that way, it can be automatically tested. Then complete structural validation, validating client submitted data. Okay. How we can validate that data? Because when some rules are there, then only we can validate. Okay. So validation comes from the schemas, and schema is nothing but some rules. So these are the things that you can simply understand in that way. Okay. So let us see how it looks like. It is looking like this. Even the JSON schema is again what? The JSON schema is again a JSON object. You can see clearly there is a name value pairs. There is a clear cut object definitions here. Okay, so everything is curly braced. There are some arrays also. So all these are actually complying with the JSON formatting. So that's why the JSON schema is nothing but one more JSON object that we are going to create. But it is not the case with the DTD. DTD is not like XML. DTD cannot be a well-formed XML because it do not comply with the well-formedness. So many examples are there. There is no starting tag, there is no end tag, there is no element declaration, and there is no quotation mark. So many well-formedness rules it is missing. But whereas JSON is complying with all the JSON formatting, so that's why the JSON schema is again one more JSON object. Okay. So now we will deal this with some elaboration. The keywords in the JSON schema. The schema is this dollar schema. Actually, this is a keyword actually. Okay. So you can find this in the very first line. This is the very first line of name value pair of the JSON schema. So whenever you are coming across the dollar schema keyword, it specifies the version of the JSON schema to process with. That means whatever we are saying here, it is the version of the JSON schema. So now this particular data with this JSON data is complying with the draft 4 schema of the JSON. So in that way, the parser will come into know. Then title. You will use this to give a title to your schema. Okay, so title here. Then description, a little description to the schema to the reader. Description means whatever the document is actually all about. ये document के अंदर है क्या? Whether this is a medicinal data, or whether this is some civil engineering data, or it is some financial data, or it is some human resource personal data. So what is this data is containing? So that we are going to provide in our description. So you can You can put your title also. Accordingly, you can put your description. Then type. The type keyword specifies the first constraint on our JSON data. It has to be a JSON object. Type means whether this is a JSON object or not that you are going to define. So type is an object which is containing some properties like this. And those things we are going to define again, properties. Various keys and value pairs with minimum and maximum constraints. Minimum and maximum constraints. You can see minimum 0, maximum, in this example it is not there, but exclusive maximum, minimum, maximum, it is there. And what is this type? Number. Okay, so whenever there is a price, it should be a number. If you are providing in strings, then the JSON parser will, the JSON schema will complain because the rule is not matching. And whenever there is a description, whenever there is a whenever there is a name, actually it should be a string. And whenever there is an ID, it should be an integer. And whenever there is a required, so this is a constraint actually. All these three are required. You cannot miss out this ID, you cannot miss out this name as well as price. So 1, 2, 3, these three are required. Okay, because it is again putting some constraint. These three are required. If you miss out this price, then if you are skipping with this price object, then it is fine. Otherwise, it will generate an error. Validation error. Actually, validation error will be given by the JSON schema upon that XML, upon that JSON file. So required keeps a list of required properties. Then minimum. This is the constraint to put on the value and represents minimum acceptable value. What is the minimum value for that particular? Suppose there is a price. You cannot put a number like minus 250. The price cannot be minus 250. Okay, it should be greater than or equal to 0. So that condition we are stipulating with this keyword minimum : 0. And exclusive minimum. Exclusive minimum is present and has Boolean value true. The instance is valid if it is strictly greater than the value of the minimum. Okay. So the tabi valid exclusive minimum. The instance is valid if it is strictly greater than, not greater than or equal to. Not greater than or equal to, it is only greater than. Then it is called as exclusive minimum. Similarly, exclusive maximum is present and has a Boolean value. The instance is valid if it is strictly lower than the value of the maximum. That means it is strictly less than. It's not like less than or equal to. So that is what exclusive maximum and minimum. So in this example, where is that? Exclusive minimum true. Exclusive minimum true means whatever the value should be greater than 0. Okay, true, because it is true. As it is true, it cannot be 0. It can be 1 or greater than 0. Greater than 0 means 1, 10, 500, 1000, 10,000, anything. And then maximum, you know the meaning of the maximum. There is no point of explaining that. Then multiple of the length of a string instance defined as the maximum number of characters. Suppose it is containing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters. So the maximum number of characters that you can provide is 9. For this, if you are providing this as a data. Okay. And for example, only I am telling. Okay. So in that way, the length of the string, the entire length of the string, we can put as a constraint. Similarly, the length of a string we can put as a minimum length. How many characters? Suppose you are going to capture the first name and last name of a registration page, and when the user is submitting the data, you are going to create a JSON file, JSON formatting on the fly, and your JSON schema can evaluate, and if it is less than 5 characters, then you can raise the JavaScript error. You can raise the JavaScript error like saying, please provide greater than 5 characters for the first name or the last name, whatever the text that you want to grab. So in those conditions, you can take these properties, these constraints. Then pattern. It's like a regular expression. Regular expressions are generally used for the emails, then PIN numbers, then your Aadhaar numbers. Some particular patterns are there. So all those patterns you can provide with some regular expression, and if it is matching, then only your schema is valid. So those conditions you can simply set. Here in this example, it is not there. Then these are all the schema constraints that you can apply. Okay. So what are they? You can provide with some types. This is the type. You can provide some properties, and you can provide whether it is a mandatory thing or not. You can provide the minimum, maximum numbers, exclusive minimum, exclusive maximum, multiple of, a numeric instance is valid against multiple of. If the result of the division is, you can check with some like these kind of numerical calculations. If the result of the division of the instance by this keyword value is an integer, then you can validate accordingly by using this multiple of. So this is one way of validating the data actually. Okay, and all these are supporting you for proper validation of your JSON formats. And finally, there are several validators currently available for different programming languages. Currently, the most complete and compliant JSON schema validator is JSV. Okay. Along with that, some libraries also support some languages also support some libraries. So this C language is supporting WJ element library. Java is supporting JSON schema validator library. .NET is supporting JSON.NET library by MIT. ActionScript Flash is supporting this format, this library. Haskell supports this. Python supports JSON schema. Ruby, PHP, and JavaScript supports so many libraries. So first priority is given to BSD, then JSV, JSON schema, Dojo. So not only these, so many libraries are there, and all those libraries actually provide the capability to read and write the JSON objects from your web applications. So this is the ultimate capability that you want to have for interacting with the data which is in JSON format. So that's all about JSON. So if you want to, so with that we have completed the JSON topic. So JSON is nothing but a simple format which is in JavaScript kind of implementation, having the similar syntax, and its capability is to mainly read and write the data from different programming languages. For that, we have so many libraries, open standard libraries available.